You hit 6 figures in your savings account. You did it. $100,000 sitting there, untouched, waiting. And you'd think that would feel like winning, like safety, like finally exhaling after years of holding your breath. But instead, you check the balance again. You run the numbers in your head, and somehow, it still doesn't feel like enough. You're not crazy for feeling this way, and you're definitely not alone. Here's what nobody tells you about reaching $100,000. The relief you imagined doesn't show up the way you thought it would. You cross this invisible line that's supposed to mean security, stability, freedom, and instead, you're hit with this strange new kind of anxiety. Not the panic of being broke, but this quiet, persistent hum of worry that doesn't go away just because your bank account has commas in it now. And the worst part? You feel guilty for even feeling this way. Because you know people are struggling. You know you're lucky. You know you should be grateful. But the unease is still there, sitting in your chest, showing up at 2 a.m. when you can't sleep. So let's talk about it. Let's talk about why having more money than most people will ever save can still leave you feeling exposed, uncertain, and weirdly unsafe. The first thing you need to understand is that money doesn't work the way we think it does. We treat it like it's this objective thing, a number, a measurement. You have more, you feel better. You have less, you feel worse. Simple math. But that's not how your brain experiences money. Your brain doesn't care about the number in your account. It cares about what that number means. And meaning is shaped by context, comparison, and fear. When you were younger, maybe $5,000 felt like a fortune. Then, you got older. Life got more complicated. And suddenly $5,000 feels like 2 months of rent and a medical bill. The number didn't change. Your relationship to it did. So when you hit $100,000, your brain doesn't just celebrate. It immediately starts calculating. It starts scanning for threats. It starts asking, okay, but what if? What if I lose my job? What if the market crashes? What if someone gets sick? What if the car dies? What if the roof needs replacing? What if? What if? What if? And suddenly 6 figures doesn't feel like wealth. It feels like a buffer, a thin one. There's this thing in psychology called hedonic adaptation. It's the reason why winning the lottery doesn't make people happy forever, and why getting a raise feels good for about 3 weeks before it just becomes your new normal. Your brain is incredibly efficient at adjusting to new baselines. And once it does, the thing that used to feel like a dream just becomes the floor, the new minimum, the starting point. So when you hit $100,000, your brain doesn't say, we made it. It says, okay, this is the new zero, now what? And that recalibration happens faster than you'd think. Because the moment you have something to lose, loss aversion kicks in. And loss aversion is one of the most powerful psychological forces we deal with when it comes to money. Studies show that the pain of losing something is about twice as strong as the pleasure of gaining it. So the fear of losing that $100,000 feels more intense than the joy of earning it ever did. You're not motivated by abundance anymore. You're motivated by protection, and protection is exhausting. But here's where it gets even more complicated. That $100,000 isn't just money. It's time. It's sacrifice. It's every dinner you skipped, every weekend you worked, every vacation you didn't take, every no you said to yourself and everyone around you. You didn't just save money, you traded pieces of your life for it. And now that it's sitting there, you're terrified of it disappearing, because it represents more than dollars. It represents years, effort, proof that you did something right. And if it goes away, that doesn't just hurt financially, it hurts emotionally. It feels like failure, like all that time was wasted, like you're back to square one, but older now, more tired, with less runway. So you hold on, you protect it, you don't spend it, even when you could, even when it might actually improve your life, because spending it feels like losing it, and losing it feels like losing you. There's also this other layer that most people don't talk about, the isolation of having money in a world where most people don't. You can't really talk about this with most people. You can't say, I have $100,000 saved and I still feel anxious, without sounding ungrateful or out of touch. So you keep it to yourself. You sit with the unease alone. You don't get reassurance. You don't get perspective. You just worry quietly. And that isolation makes the anxiety worse. Because without a reference point, without someone to tell you this is normal, you start to think something's wrong with you, that you're broken, that you'll never feel secure, no matter how much you save. But the truth is, security isn't a number. It never was. Security is a feeling, and feelings don't operate on logic. They operate on perception, story, and belief. You can have $1 million and feel broke if your story is one of scarcity. You can have $10,000 and feel abundant if your story is one of sufficiency. Your $100,000 feels unsettling because the story you're telling yourself hasn't changed. You still see the world as unstable. You still see yourself as vulnerable. And no amount of money fixes that until you rewrite the narrative. So what do you do with this? How do you actually shift the way you relate to money so that it stops controlling how you feel? First, you have to separate fear from reality. Your anxiety is real. The threats you're imagining, most of them aren't. Sit down and actually run the numbers. Not in your head at 2 a.m., but on paper, in daylight, with a clear mind. What does an emergency actually cost? What does 6 months of expenses look like? What would it take to survive a job loss, a medical issue, a broken-down car? When you do this, you'll probably realize that $100,000 covers way more than your fear is telling you it does. You'll see that the gap between what you have and what you need is smaller than it feels. And that gap? That's where the peace lives. Second, give your money a job. Right now, it's just sitting there, which makes it feel fragile, passive, like it could disappear at any moment. But when you assign purpose to it, when you divide it into categories, emergency fund, future investments, it stops being this vague pile of worry and starts being a tool, a plan, something you control instead of something controlling you. You don't need to spend it. You just need to organize it in a way that makes sense to your brain. So that when you look at it, you see structure, not chaos. Third, and this is the hardest one, you have to practice sufficiency. You have to train yourself to recognize when you have enough. Not enough to retire. Not enough to never worry again. Just enough for right now. Enough to be okay. Enough to not panic. Because if you don't practice that, you'll hit $200,000 and feel the same way. Then 500,000. Then 1,000,000. The number will keep moving, but the anxiety won't. You'll just keep chasing a finish line that doesn't exist. Sufficiency doesn't mean stopping. It doesn't mean you can't want more or work toward more. It just means you pause long enough to acknowledge that you're not in danger, that you're doing better than you think, that the catastrophe you're bracing for isn't happening right now. And when you do that, when you let yourself feel the security you've built instead of just seeing it on a screen, something shifts. The number stops being the thing. Your peace starts being the thing. Look, I'm not going to tell you that money doesn't matter. It does. It matters a lot. And having $100,000 is objectively better than not having it. It gives you options, breathing room, the ability to say no to things that drain you. But it won't fix the part of you that's afraid. That part needs something else. It needs perspective. It needs rest. It needs you to stop running from fear long enough to realize you're not actually being chased. You did something hard. You built something real. And yeah, the world is uncertain. The future is unpredictable. Things can go wrong. And you're more prepared for both than you were before. So maybe the goal isn't to stop feeling unsettled. Maybe it's to feel unsettled and capable at the same time. To hold the tension without letting it consume you. Because that's what financial security actually is. Not the absence of fear, but the presence of enough resources, enough self-trust to move forward anyway. You've got that. You just have to let yourself believe it.